Стюарт Лоусон, исполнительный директор Ernst&Young в России и председатель Комитета по финансам и инвестициям Ассоциации европейского бизнеса, поделился с инвестпорталом своими наблюдениями о том, какие перемены произошли в экономической жизни Москвы за последние 20 лет. Господин Лоусон обозначил основные трудности, с которыми сталкивается европейский бизнес, выходя на московский рынок, дал оценку инвестиционному климату в столице и рассказал, какие возможности открывает для бизнеса современная Москва.
Well, I was sent in '95 by Citibank to open the first Citibank office here in Moscow. And in 1995, Moscow was a very, very different place. It was dark, it was miserable. Of course, it remains cold, but there were hardly any lights around, there were no restaurants. Life revolved around what was going on in your business life and the large hotels. The changes over that period from 1995 to today reflect the enormous shift in Russia. Perhaps the easiest way of saying what has changed is that there's been this emergence of the middle class. Life has become a much more normal, actually quite a glamorous lifestyle in Moscow. And I think there remain issues. There are always going to be issues. But lifestyle in Moscow today, compared to other European cities, I can tell you that you're right up there in terms of facilities and ease of life. I'm the chairman of the Finance and Investment Committee for AEB, the Association of European Businesses. So yes, obviously I do receive a number of questions on the environment in Russia. I think if you start with what are the challenges facing outsiders, it is simply that they are on the receiving end of sometimes very negative publicity on Russia. Russia, unfortunately, over the years, produces spikes where they can write these very negative pieces. And these are then read by people who have no or have very limited experience of what Russia is like on the ground. I work for Ernst&Young, and we publish an attractiveness survey. And year after year, our respondents say those companies who are invested today in Russia remain extremely positive on the environment and will maintain or increase their investment. Those companies who have yet to arrive tend to be far more concerned and far more nervous. And I think this is a long process, and certainly one of education. So I believe that a major factor in persuading European companies of the reality on the ground is to make sure that we get our message across that there's plenty of business here, it's in a normalized environment and has tremendous opportunities. One of the concerns is infrastructure. The traffic situation really needs to get dealt with. And it's interesting to see over the last 6 months, actually progress is being made. We're now getting these parking meters in place. They're now issuing traffic citations for speeding and for blocking streets. And gradually, I have actually noticed personally over the last 6 months an improvement. Now that has to continue because you can't do business in a city where you can't move around. So it's an obvious one, people talk about it, and it's one that is relatively easy to solve. Talking about corruption always is a sensitive issue. Now, luckily for me in this situation, you know, I don't have to talk about corruption because the president of the country is talking about corruption. The president of the country is the person who has established these goals of wiping out corruption, has put in place a number of laws dealing with that, and has also committed his government to the process of increasing their transparency. This, I think, is a very positive step forward. Of course, it's only as good as the execution. And I would say that the foreign investors in overseas understand what the objectives are and will now look to see what the execution is. You know, I have a certain perspective, and obviously I would like to say that, you know, the economic world There have been tremendous opportunities for the banks in Russia. I think they are challenged, both in terms of their global operations and also in terms of very fierce competition from the local major players. Certainly the emergence of the middle class and the consumer society that comes with that provides tremendous opportunities across really all the consumer segments. And by the way, including financing those consumer segments. So I think when you look at new opportunities in Moscow, just go out and look at the shops. You know, it's noticeable to me that it's the middle class shops, not the high-end shops, that are full of shoppers out doing normal things. I think a lot could be done by filming the day in the life of a normal middle class person in Moscow as they go about what is actually, you know, obviously during the winter, pretty horrid weather conditions, but in any other regard is a very normal existence. When there's a restaurant that's on the 60th floor of a building, and you say, let's go meet on the 60th floor of a building in Moscow to have dinner, I think that statement says a lot all by itself. I think if you look at Moscow City and the fact that it looked like a 7-year-old smile during the recession, in other words, half the buildings weren't there, and you look at how much that's come on, that's right there, that's impressive. But, you know, to me on a sort of, you know, day-to-day basis, this shift in the parks in Moscow has really been quite dramatic. And it just shows that actually with a little bit of focus, with the right objectives, and with good execution, you can change people's life experience to the positive. And I spend enjoyable hours, not just enjoyable for myself, but also a sense that Russia really is changing when you see families enjoying themselves, whether winter or summer, in these new facilities. I think Russia is a continuing story. This is really only 21 years old, so we've got plenty of room for this economy to continue to develop. I don't think anybody should believe that this is a straight line. Life is more complex than that. I think there will be some periods where we seem to be moving sideways or backwards, but that I think if you look at the overall trajectory here from 1995, my goodness, we've moved a long way forward.